I think there it is. Oh God, where is my GitHub now? Okay, there it is. See, and once you have it running, this is what we did last week. So I'll kind of go to my Team Explorer and set it up properly for you guys. So again, everything is on GitHub, but I have no clue how it goes. It doesn't save it like a zipped file. I know that because I've kind of gone there and seen it. But I'm still placing everything in the... So I'm going to add a new one here. And so this is again going on GitHub, just in a new repository so that it doesn't clash with the previous one. Oh, that's strange that it has 7 changes. I can't even remember. Did I do so many changes? Anyway, right? So you've seen this before. Now I'll refresh your memories as to what we were doing, and then I'll go forward from there. I don't know. It says live, so I'm hoping it is live. So at this point of time, we were able to add coffee flavors, remove a coffee flavor, remove all coffee flavors, and then count how many, whatever you need, right? But when you ran the program, everything was okay. But if the program was shut off and you ran it again, nothing got changed. And logically so, because you were working with a list. So the items collection, which is called items, the collection is a dynamic volatile list. And by volatile, I mean it resides in memory. When the program is running, it gets space in memory, it works, program finishes, everything dies, and you're back to it, right? So these data types and data structures that you've been doing till date, in all programming languages, they're called volatile because they come and go. They take birth and they die, right? And that's what happens. But now, of course, this was only 5 coffee flavors and 5 syrups, and it was okay. It was not a big deal. But that's not how you work in the real world. You want your data to be persistent, right? So if every morning Tim Hortons, wherever, any coffee shop, Tim Hortons is big, maybe their servers are running all night. But in small coffee shops, you don't want to load all or type in all the coffee flavors again every morning when the application starts. That's really silly, right? So what we will do is, so there are various ways of making your data persistent. We know of files. So you can save data in files. At the end of the day, any changes that you make, you can save back. Every morning it loads from the file, the application loads from a file, and it goes on. So files are used when your data is not very huge, right? Maybe some thousand number of records, or that's. But of course, files do not work in all situations. So you could be using databases, right? Which is your second goal. But then a database is a huge repository of data. So it depends. So we'll start with files. I'll show you how to make your data persistent in files this week. And then next week when I see you, we'll do databases. That's the maximum I can do with you. Like there's nothing else. And then when you come back after your Christmas break, we'll do our final exam, right? So you have one more quiz to go, the one on files. The databases one, we'll see how it works out, because then you have holidays and when you come back, you have a final exam. So I don't know whether we'll be able to do that quiz or whether we'll have to do that and the final exam. I have no clue. Because of time restrictions, there are so many problems this time, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to introduce you to 2 new controls also. Open file dialog boxes and save file dialog boxes. And what are open file dialog boxes? Anytime you want to do something like open, what happens is you kind of, whenever you do this, I'll just give an example. Notice how a file dialog box comes up. So it makes it very easy. It's not asking you the name of the file or whatever. Who can remember all that? And we know that the more easier it is for the user, the better it is. So gone are the days, long gone are the days when we used to do everything on the command line. We had to know the names of the files and everything. It was too much work. Since IDEs have, or since Windows has become all, GUI, and then IDEs have been available, nobody wants to do all this. So definitely you are not going to ask a user, please input the name of your file. What will you do? You will show the user a file dialog box and say, here, choose the file which you want to open. And similarly for save, like you do everywhere, you'll say, oh, that's so common. Why are you even thinking it? Because it was not so maybe 30 years back, right? But it seems a long time, but it was not. Similarly, when you take the date births of, like if you ask for what is the date of your birth, the easiest way to ask is to show this. and choose. Why would you say, I mean, though you could have combo boxes for months and years and days, but even that's old now, you know what I mean? But when there were no combo boxes and there was no GUI kind of interaction with the, you were asked, you had to put it in, like you had to put it in like, and it would say MMDDYY. So you have to be very careful how you put in your dates. So all those things, of course, interfaces have improved, and therefore interface creation is a big thing. Therefore, I say create user-friendly interfaces. Don't use don't use symbols that make sense to you but not to everybody. Like for the it's a simple thing. For the number, you can use the hash sign. But does everybody know that hash sign is for a number? You'll say, yeah, yeah. But no, it's not. Not everybody knows that the hash sign stands for a number. You can't assume anything. The only thing you should assume is that my user is the most stupid person on earth. And then you will always create a good interface because you're trying to give everything to the user. So creating user-friendly interface is an important thing. And I mean, you're not doing bad. Interfaces are not bad when I pick them up, but there's not everything present on it, right? So I'll show you how to use a file dialog box today. I'll show you how to use a save file box today. Definitely, you will learn how to open and close files. You will learn how to read from files, write to files, because that's what you do basically. Then how can you open a file in different modes for the writing, for reading, for read or write, to share or not to share, and so on and so forth, right? So what I've done is on Blackboard, I have placed all the contents that I think will help you during the exam. Now, I don't know whether you have books or not, but slides were given to me by the publisher. So I kind of put them here. But since now I'm asking for multiple choice exams, what I'm doing is I'm also going through the slides because I have to see if they're okay. So I found that a few things were kind of missing in this chapter. This is chapter 21 on Blackboard, okay? So what I did was I added a few notes to a couple of slides. For example, I'll show it to you so that when you're preparing for the exam, so here it says members in file mode enumeration. So how can you open a file? You can open a file in the append mode, in the create mode, in the create new mode, in the open mode, and so on. I've kind of put notes here what each one means so that when you read these slides, at least you have an idea. Of course, you can always Google. I mean, if you don't have the textbook, you can always Google because textbook was optional. So I thought, why not? I'll just add some notes here, right? So I've added these notes for you just in case you need them while you're studying. And I would recommend just put it on your cheat sheet. So anything that you see that, of course, you don't want to memorize, but will make sense me asking. So for example, when we do this today, I can ask you, what are the various modes in which it can be opened? So you should know that I can open a file in the append mode. Append means you are adding at the end of the file. So records are already present and you're adding at the end is append. You're saying in the create mode. Create mode means if the file exists, that's fine. If it doesn't, create a new one, right? So all these, again, I can't remember them by myself. So how can I expect you to memorize it? But all the notes are here, and that's what the cheat sheet is for. You can put small notes on it so that you don't have to memorize anything. Okay. So the aim today will be as I go on, I'll kind of come back to this PowerPoint slide and show you what are our objectives today. So in C#, you can work with three kinds of files. You can work with text files. Text means anything is text, even 23 is text. So everything is saved as text, read as text. Everything is a string. So now if you're going to save the marks of my student to find the average or whatever, then if I'm saving them, of course they are numbers, but when they're saved as strings. So when I have to get them, I'll have to parse them before I can use them. Those are text strings. Everything is text. Saved as text, read as text, nothing else. So they're simple to manipulate, simple to use, but everything has to be parsed when you read from it and before you use it. Then there are binary files, and in binary files you can save integers, decimals, and they're saved as integers, like binary computers, right? Everything is binary. So they're saved as numbers, and when you read them, they're read as numbers. So you don't have to parse or anything, but of course, if you're saying I'm going to save a person's name, when you read it, you can't say, oh, that's the person's marks. You know what I mean? So with files, you have to know the structure. If you're saving the name of a student, his or her marks. Name of the second student, his or her marks. So when you read it, you exactly have to know this is how I saved it. So the first read you do is the name, the second you do is the marks. Again name, again marks. So the structure of a file you exactly have to know, like in a database. If you don't know the structure of a table, how will you use it? The same concept here too, okay? So there are binary files, and in binary files, the main advantage is data is preserved in the sense numbers are numbers, text is text, everything is what it is in binary files. but they're not readable by human eye, but files, they can be opened, they can be read, they can be written to, everything is possible. And the third type of files that you can work with are XML files, extensible markup language files. That means the file structure itself is in XML, it's written in XML. And again, Visual Basic, C# allows you to read data from XML files and save data to XML files. Now, getting there would be tough today, and I don't think I'll do it, and therefore I'm not expecting you to memorize anything from it. Okay? So the two type of files, I'll do text files with you today, but I definitely want you to know about binary files because there's not much difference. Okay? And the IO classes that we will be working with today, not all of them, but I will show you a couple if you like. The directory and the file and the path class are the upper ones, like you needn't always use them, but definitely I'll be working with other classes today, like file stream class, stream reader class, stream writer class, binary reader class, and binary writer class. Not the last two because I'm not going to work with binary data. So I will definitely work with these five classes, but you should be aware of these classes also, directory, file, and path. And then again, if I can, I'll show you. The namespace that you need to include in your program is system.io, right? The using one. Again, nobody remembers it, but it's an easy name. And as soon as you use a file, it will tell you, oh, you have to have this file. So here are some methods. You can always check whether a path exists. You can always create a new directory. You can always delete a path. You can always delete a path recursively. That means everything inside, all subfolders also get deleted. Here is a very simple example. A string variable called dir was created, needn't be called dir, but dir is short directory, and it's checking if the directory exists. If it does not exist because of this not here, create a new one, right? So it's just a class that exists. Just so that you know, if you haven't seen this before, notice how there is an @ sign in a string variable. This @ sign in C# says read verbatim. Like, what is verbatim? Whatever you see in double quotes is how you read it. Why? Because let's see what the verbatim means. Backslash is a special character. We all know that backslash is a special character. So if I wanted to use a backslash in a string variable, I'll have to write // to escape its meaning. But now when I put an @ in front of it, I'm saying whatever I type in my double quotes has to be read as it is. Don't assume it to be any special character or anything. So that's what it is called, as verbatim. Whatever you see is whatever you read. If I don't have this @ sign, if I remove it, then I'll have to escape these backslashes, because otherwise backslash is a special character in almost all languages and definitely in C#. So if you wanted to put a \n here, just \n for whatever reason, but we know that \n takes you to a new line, but you want to say, no, I just want you to just use it like \n, then I'll just put an @ in front of it, and it will mean whatever is in the string, you just read it as per se. Don't be smart enough to interpret it. Okay, so this is very common in C#, putting an @ in front of a string variable so that you don't have to escape special sequences. Okay, so here is a very simple example which is checking whether a directory exists, and if it does not exist, it is creating a new directory. The create new directory is a method. So all you have to do is give the path. This is a path, which is basically that your new file, the new directory will get, this is a new directory which will get created if it does not exist, right? So it's not very tough. Files are not tough at all. They're very easy to work with. Okay, so let's one by one start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 new menu items here. I'm going to say open O. Let's see, O is not a, okay, so you can take O to be your shorthand key. Open file. I'm adding 2 new menu items. One, I'm saying open file, and then I'm saying save. S is already there. A is not there. Oh, A is also already there. V, then save coffee flavors. You can say save coffee flavors in file if you like, though it becomes a big one, but anyway, right? So I've added 2. I've added 2 menu items. I've said open file. You could maybe make it a little better. You could say open file to read coffee flavors, for coffee flavors, or you could, here I've made it more verbose. I've said save coffee flavors in file, right? You can always move. You can always, come on, oops, I made a mistake. It's just slow and we don't match. Okay, let's take this. I should be able here. You can move it to any position you like by just dragging it. So it was looking odd after the exit. So I've just moved it up in my list. Okay. So these are two new menu items that I've added. As the name suggests, open file will allow you to open a file, and save coffee flavors in file will allow you to save the coffee flavors in a file. Okay. Now, before I can, how to use that open file dialog box that I was telling you about. They're available. You don't have to do anything at all. If you go to your dialog boxes, in your toolbox, you will notice there is a open file dialog, select it, and there is a save file dialog, select it. Okay, so select these two components in your component tray. So they don't have a visual effect, but of course we will use them. So what is an open file dialog? It's exactly what I showed you right now, what it is. And it has some properties. It will check, does the file already exist? If you want to say you don't check, I'll check it myself, then you can make it from false here and you take the onus of checking it. I'll show you both ways. It will check whether a path exists. So anytime you try to open a file using Windows, if you can't find it, it will tell you. So here, let me show it to you. I'm trying to open something and I give something like AA. Like I know it doesn't exist. And I say open. It comes up saying AA file not found, check the file and try again. How is it doing it? Because that property which says check file exists is true. Right? So we can use this default property, or if you don't like how it appears, you want to give some other message of your own, you can put it in a try catch. So again, keep in mind that we will do all try catches. We will do all try, and if you cancel it, of course, it closes. Nothing happens. So there is a open button and there is a cancel button. Those are the two buttons on your open file dialog. And similarly on your save, is there a save as? Yeah. That's the save file dialog box. It has two buttons, save and cancel. Right? So same concept, I'm going to use the same concept here also. So I'm just showing you their properties. They are called, it's called open file dialog 1. For now, it will check if the file exists when you try to open it and so on. But we can change these properties and I'll show you how. The save file dialog box, it does not check if the file exists, because what does it do? It says, okay, you're trying to save, I'll just save it. But if it already exists, it will say it already exists. Do you want to replace it? And if you say yes, it will. And if you say no. So that's what is happening here. Okay. So they have their own properties. Okay. So let's start. So these are the two new controls you are learning today. And of course, you will learn how to work with files, which of course I can't remember off my top of my head, but we will do it. Okay. So double click on your open file. This will open. So what do you want to do? You want to show the file dialog box on the screen, right? You want to take whatever the user gives you. If the user has done a cancel, of course, there's nothing to do. But if the user has said open, you want to open that file. You want to read the contents of the file and put it in your combo box and go with it. So we'll learn how to do that. But of course, before I can open and close everything, I need to have some variables here, module level variables. Okay, so I'm going to declare data is always hidden. So private variables of various kinds, and one, the stream reader. So the stream reader is basically, spelling is wrong. Stream reader, as we just saw in the PowerPoint slides, stream reader is a class that allows you to read from files. Okay, so and why are they all called stream? Because it's a common name that's now given to files, like stream of water, because in files, what it is, it's just data, and data flows, we call it stream. Okay, so I'll need a stream reader, and as soon as I'll do this, it will give you an error, which it is of course giving you. And what is it saying? It says I can't find it. So you'll say, okay, put a using, go to your potential fixes and just click on using system IO and it will go away. Right? So again, you may not, who memorizes it, because these come up, but at least for a quiz, put it on your cheat sheet that the class, the namespace that is used is system.io. Right? So that's what happens in multiple choices. Okay, I'm just going to call it coffee stream reader, just because it's to do with coffees, right? I'm going to create another private stream writer object. The stream writer object allows you to write. It has write and write line. Stream reader has read and read line. It has those methods to read from a file and write to a file. I'll call it coffee stream writer. I just chose this name so that I didn't have to think of others. I can do a coffee common and then I can just put stream reader or writer. This was an old convention. I just use it just because it's easy. The old convention was you could put the name of the object at the end. Then you could use the same name, coffee. Stream reader says I'm reading from it and stream writer says I'm writing. So it was a convention that was handy, but it became kind of an overkill. So every time you declared an integer, you said number integer. You wanted a decimal number, you said result decimal. So it became too much, and people said, no, that's too much a convention. So it was kind of dropped. Writing it with every variable. When you can, all you can do is you can bring your mouse over it and it will tell you what kind of variable it is. But I stuck to this because it was just easy for this. And also, I'll show it to you. I'll show you both ways. We will use a file stream variable also. And there are various ways, and I'll show you both. I'm going to create a file stream object. Right, so file stream object, I'll show you when we work, what is the use of a file stream object. And then I'll relate it to the PowerPoint slide here. Let me open the one that it shows it that way when I come to it. Here, that's what a file stream object does. The file stream object opens a particular file in any of these modes, in any of these accesses. So you can open a file in any of these modes as an append, as a create, create new, open, open, or create and truncate. And you can open it for reading, for writing, or both for reading and writing. You can also share your file. None, I don't want to share it. Read says while the application is running, another application can read from it. Read write says while an application is running and using a file, another application can read and write to that file. So all this has synchronous and asynchronous reading writing. So you have to be careful if you're sharing in a read write mode. And similarly in the write mode, while an application is using a file, another application can write to it, which is again dangerous. Kind of dangerous means it has to be synchronized. So if you're going to share it in either the read write or the write mode, of course you have to learn much more. You should know how it is safe to share files. It should be thread safe and all that. I'm not going that route because we are just learning how to use files today. So I'll either do it none, and read is not a problem at all. While I'm working with the file, if somebody else just wants to read from it, it doesn't matter, right? But you can stick with none. So I don't know what the default is, but somewhere in my notes, I must have told you what the default. Here is the default. Read write is the default in file access. So if you only want to open it for read, we'll have to say read. If only for write, you'll have to say write. Again, in file share, I've said this is the default. See, read is the default, which is a safe one. Nothing happens. Read, anybody can read while an application is working with a file. Okay, so I've again given notes here because just so that you can see them. But that doesn't mean while you prepare, you can Google and look for it. But I want to make it as easy for you because I know time is restricted. Okay, so let's come back to where we were. Oh, no, not you, sorry, there. Right, so I've declared 3 variables, all private because data must be hidden. Also, I'm going to use a Boolean variable today. I'm going to call it is dirty, and I'll show you, I'll tell you what its use is. And again, Boolean, everything has a default value, just so that it's just redundant, though I shouldn't be. But by default, module level Boolean variable is set to false by default. You don't have to say is equal to false. Now, what is this is dirty? Let me explain what variable is. It's very commonly done in programming languages when you have to work with files. Now you read something from a file, you work with it. Suppose during the application, you don't make any changes to your coffee flavors. Does it make sense to save the contents back to the file? No, because no changes will be. So what this is dirty variable will do is, if I make a change, I add a new flavor, or I remove a flavor, or I remove all flavors, I make this variable true. So that when the user is going to save, if there is nothing to save, I'll say, you don't have to save anything. So this variable will help you. Or when the user is closing the application, I'll just double check. Oh, something was changed. I'll ask the user, things were changed. Do you want to save it before you want to exit? So this is dirty is a very common name used for Boolean variables, which is basically saying did something change or not. So say, what is the big deal? Let it be saved even if you didn't make changes to it. We're not talking only of 5 records. You could have thousands of records. So if you have only read the file, you were only using the file, and you didn't make any changes to the contents of the file, why would you like to change it back? Because nothing has changed, right? So this variable will help you to kind of double check what change is made or not. So let's see, where will I set it true? Where should you be setting it true? Anytime you add anything to a coffee flavor. Remember this? Where we added last time. Oh, I didn't change my TSMI for the other ones. That's okay. So anytime you add a coffee flavor, look for your add here. Anytime you add a coffee flavor, make your is dirty variable true. Yep, I made a change. Make sense? Right? So you added a new flavor. That means I have not spelled it right. Did I call it something else here? Ah, Thank you. And you can always, if you want to look at a variable, you can always double click and it will show you wherever it occurs in your code. Or you can do a right click and say find all occurrences. So I've made it true here in my add, right? So this is the only place where I see add. So I know that I must have added a coffee flavor. Here it was failed, so I don't see an add. Here I see an add. Come down and see if it was at no, that's fine, right? The check flavor was only checking it. I definitely know that I will make a change to my coffee flavors in remove. So look, wherever you have a remove, there it is, remove at, make your is dirty variable again true. So you made a change here. So it will be set to true. You'll say, what if I add also and remove also? It just gets true twice. That doesn't matter. True just means changes were made. Okay. Look down and see, is there anything anywhere else? There it is. There is another remove at. Make your is dirty variable true here also. So all I'm doing is I started with false. That's its initial value. And anytime I make a change, I will set it to true. And of course, after I've saved the contents to a file, I'll again make it false. I have to, so that I've done my job. So that's the use of the is dirty variable. There should be more. Preview. There was another one. Remove all coffee flavors. Clear all. Double click on that. There it is. So if the user says, yes, I want to clear everything, that means you've cleared all coffee flavors. Make your is dirty equal to true. That's the third place you make a change. So definitely in counting, you don't make any change. You're counting how many coffee flavors, you're not making any changes to the coffee flavors. So I assigned true to is dirty in add. I assigned it true in my delete, and I assigned it true in my create. Those are the places where coffee flavors have changed. So now when I save something, I'll double check. Is dirty is true? Yes, it is true. We need to save something. Okay. Okay. So now let's look at, so I have created a few module level variables here, and the use of this variables file stream to create a file stream object. And a file stream object, all it does is it's kind of it's making something ready for reading and writing. So it's a stream, and then you attach a file to it, and the file will, then you can talk to that file. Okay, I'll show you that easy ways. I'll show you both ways. Okay, now let's go back to a design again and come back in open. Okay, here. So there is where we were. So I've declared some new variables, and I have declared the is dirty, and I've changed it where I have to change it. Now, what should happen in open file dialog? In the open file dialog, the open file dialog box must come up. If the user does cancel, there's nothing to be done. If the user says open, then I have to open the file in the read mode because I want to read from it, and then populate my combo box and go ahead with that. Okay, so let's do the step, how to do it. So I will need a dialog result variable, because what if the user says, no, I don't want to open anything? So I'm going to take a dialog result variable called dialog result. Okay, it's a local variable. I'm going to take a file name. I'm just keeping it in a variable called coffee name. And just to show you, I'm not going to use it, but I'm going to create a directory variable just to show it to you. Like it was in PowerPoint, bless you, so that you can see it really works. I'm not joking about it. So I'm going to create on my C drive. You don't have to, of course, you can create whatever you like. And I'm saying all my files will be saved in this folder. Now you will say, which is a better way, in the sense that should you always be saving files in a particular folder? If you're going to work locally, it doesn't matter, right? You know where you want to save files. But definitely, if you're going to create an application for somebody, a client, you can keep saving files on your phone, like on your own local drive. So by default, it is a common practice that in C# projects, if I say show me all files, not collapse all, show all here. It is a common practice that files are saved in this folder, the debug folder under bin. The files are saved here when they have to be transferred in a project. So all files by default are created, saved, and opened here. That's its usual location, but that doesn't mean you have to, but that's the default. So it's a common practice that C# projects and Visual Basic projects will have all files that you're working with are saved in this debug folder under bin. So I'll always, when I open a file, I'll always show this directory. I'm assuming that it will go in that default. If not, then you can always change the directory to whatever you like. Nobody stops you. When you do an open, when you do an open, by default, it is opening the same, my current directory, but you can always go somewhere else. You can always go back to courses and change it to math, for example. You know what I mean? So you can, if you like, start from a particular directory, a default, but if you don't want to, then you don't have to. So I'll follow that practice that in C# projects, files are created in this folder by default. So I'll show you this file. But if you want to put it in any of folders, all you have to do is define a path and then open the file in that particular path. So you can hard code it. Nothing stops you. You can just hard code it. That practice is no longer used because of the file dialog box, but it can be done. Another thing that, because this has come up, I don't know how many of you realize this, but I'll just take one from your class last week, for example. Every file has a bin debug folder. And there is an exe inside it, and it runs like this. It's an executable program. So sometimes if I only have to look at your interface and I don't have to look at the code, when you give me your zipped file, all I do is I run your exe file and the program runs, right? Therefore, it's called exe. So this file also resides in the same folder, bin debug folder. So a couple of times when I didn't get the complete project from you, and the exe file was present, I ran it and gave you marks accordingly. So I try to see where I can look for stuff, but that's the exe file. So your client, basically, you will, when you, I mean, you don't give your whole folder to it, you publish your application. It's called publishing. And what happens is the client can only run your application. You don't give your code and everything to a client. You don't want to, because then he can, if he's smart enough, he can maybe run it himself. Okay, so just to show you an example, though I won't be using it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a dialog box to the user, and if the user says, yeah, I want to use this file, that's what it will be. Okay, now a few things to be remembered in files. When you work with files, of course, you have to open it. You work with it. Always remember to close your files. Always, right? Because it's a stream. It's a resource you are using. So resources have to be closed and disposed of. You don't have to do disposing. Disposing is done by the garbage collector, but always close it. Now, before you open a file, check that it's already not open. You can't open a file that is already, a door which is open, can you open it again? No, the same concept, right? Similarly, when you open a file, always double check that the file is not open already. So what I'm going to do here is, so check before opening. Though you will say, like, how can it be open when you're doing it for the first time? But that doesn't mean that I won't do a check. What's wrong in doing the check? It's defensive programming. So I'm going to do something like this. Bear with me. I'm going to show you two ways. So I'll write both ways for you, right? I'm going to say if fs is not equal to null, that means it is open, right? If it is not equal to null, that means it is open. Close it before I open it again. Now you'll say, what is this fs? Fs is your stream, is the file stream object, which of course is null when you begin. But as I said, I'll show you why am I doing it, okay? Check before opening, or you can say close the file if it already exists. Close the stream. I'm closing the stream here. When I close the stream, the file also is closed. I'll show you both ways, okay? And I'm writing something in comments here. I'll come back in a minute. Just because I'm doing something before even using it. It was called Coffee Stream Reader. This is another way of doing it. Is not equal to null. That means it is not open. Close it. So all you are doing is you are checking that it is closed, right? So if it is open, open means it is not equal to null. If it is open, close it. And why have I written it twice? Because I'm going to show you something and then we'll comment out one of them. We don't need both of them. We only need one because I'm going to show you two ways of working with it. Okay, now I'm going to set the properties of my, which I could have done at design time also. Just why am I doing it here? Because then I can explain it to you here. If I do things in the properties, you don't pay much attention. But if I do it here, it's something is in code, you will remember it. Okay, so take your open file dialog 1. If you haven't renamed it, I didn't rename it. It was called open file dialog 1. I'm going to set some of its properties. Initially, the initial directory that will come up when I open it, like by here, by default, my current directory was coming up. I will, by default, I'll open it. You could have just done this. And this is the one that will come up. You could just do this. You've already defined what your dir is. Remember, I said Anju on
see files. You could do this. And that's the one that will open up. This is one way of doing it. So if you want to save, open your files from a particular directory or save them in a particular directory, this is the easy way of doing it. You'll say, what if I don't initialize it to anything? Then whatever its default, I don't know what the current is, but we can double check. If I don't do it, what happens? Or if you want to open that default that I was talking about, this is how you can get it, right? There is a class called directory, if I'm not mistaken. Give me a minute. Yep, there is a class called directory. I can't remember all these names. From there you can get a get current directory. This will by default open the bin debug directory for you, which I said was the practice in C#. So if you want to create your own path, good enough, create a path, put it in a variable and use the variable name here, and that's what will open up. If you want to use the bin debug, which is the usual place where files are saved, then I'm saying show me the directory. So get current directory, that is your default directory. If you want to change it, nothing stops you. Okay, so you could use that dir this way. Okay, so I'll show you what happens. Give me a minute. Okay, again, now let's set the file name. What is the name of the file you want to choose? You'll say, I don't know. It will, I mean, I may have 20 files. I can choose whatever I like. But we are writing an application which is going to read coffee flavors from a file. So most probably you will keep all coffee flavors in a particular file. So why ask the user to even choose? You can kind of assume that this will be the name of the file. But that doesn't, oops, that doesn't mean it will say something. It will say coffee does not exist in the current context. For a minute, ignore it, and we will create it. Okay, we will create it. Case doesn't matter. Okay, so what have I done? I've said that by default, I will read from the file called coffees.txt, but that doesn't mean you can change it. You can change whatever you like. I'm just setting a few things so that it's less work for the user when the file opens up. Okay, you can also set the filter. What is the filter? This is the filter. This is called the filter. You can even set it. You can say only show me files that have extension .dat or that have extension .txt, because you know that input files or output files usually have that extension. Or if you don't know it, then you can say show me all files star.star. So this is what I'm creating now, the filter. Okay, and the property is called filter, I think, if I'm not mistaken. There it is, filter. Oops, not file. Okay, filter. So I'm setting a filter. So I'm saying this is my filter. The files that I want to see, I don't want to see the .cs files or .java files or whatever. I'm only interested in those files in this directory that have an extension of .text, .dat, whatever you like. I'm just sticking with .text files because that's what I'm using. Okay. So the format is whatever I'm writing. You just have to kind of copy it because I had to look for it. So this is the OR symbol, okay? This is the pipeline. I'll show you what happens how will this filter look like? And how will it work? Not only look like, how will it work? So I'm kind of restricting the use. I'm only showing the user, though. What am I restricting? I'm saying star.star, which will show everything. But anyway, if you only wanted to show the text files, then you would only use the first filter. So only text files will appear in your directory. Whatever text files are in your directory will appear on your screen. That's the filter. And again, setting these properties is not important, but you will see that it is user friendly. And what else can I set? Maybe, oh, don't forget your title of your, which of course it has a default one. I'll go to select file or directory. So there are a lot of properties that I can set. From where am I getting these properties? They are here, see. It's nothing that's out of the blue. Here are the properties. I've just chosen some properties. I've chosen the initial directory. I've chosen filter. I've chosen file name. And I'm just setting some values to it. Okay, that's all I'm doing. And I didn't do it there just because I said I wanted to show it to you. Okay, now what? Now let's show the dialog box. I'll give you a break as soon as I finish this part, this method, okay? I know you need a break. Okay, so how do you show it? Normal show dialog box. So just show it and take the response from the user in that variable response that you created. If you didn't create it, see that you have it. There. That's how you show a dialog box. Remember message box.show, same thing. And it has a show dialog method, and it is a modal dialog box. You have to respond to it. Otherwise you can't move forward. Okay. There is no show method. And take user's response and capture user's response. Again, you didn't have to call the variable response, but makes sense. Now, if the user has chosen to open a file. So how will you check that? Which means that if my open file, or if my confirm response is not equal to cancel. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. Not the cancel button. I need a break too. There. Then you need to do something. Else, if it's cancelled, there's like what to do? Nothing. Like the user has cancelled the operation. So if you try to open something and you open and you do a cancel, what can you do? Nothing. Like, so I'm not doing anything. There's no else. So if it is not cancelled, what do I want to do? Now I want to basically take that file name coffees.txt from that particular directory, whatever you've chosen, and try to open it in the read mode. That's what I want to do. That's my objective. So there are two ways of doing it. One, I can create a file reader object, which I'm doing. File stream object, which I'm doing. How do you create it? You go new file stream. It takes a while to help here. Okay. And now there are 15 overloaded methods of it. Of course, you're not expected to know all 15, and I can't use all 15. I'll use a one that is not so bad. Which file do you want to open? You want to open that file which you've chosen. So this is the file you've chosen. Right? This is the file you've chosen. So that's one. Okay, now two. So from where am I taking it? I'm just taking it from here. I'm just taking it from here. Here. Path. Right? So path, the directory was already chosen. I've taken the file, the mode in which you want to open. Do you want to open it in the append mode, in the create mode? In the create, open would be the one that I would like to open it in. But again, if you can't remember what it is, here it is, opens an existing file. If the file does not exist, an exception is thrown. So that means I have to catch that exception. Right? Now, the open file dialog box is already catching it. It will not, if a file does not exist, it will. But I'm not, I'll do my own work. So before I do this, I'm going to put it in a try because it is throwing an exception. I just read it. It is throwing an exception. And I definitely know of one exception that it is throwing. File not found exception. You will know, how will I know? Bring your mouse over it and it will tell you all the exception it throws. Now, if I was really doing this real time live project, I would write a catch block for every one of those exceptions. Every one, because any type of exception can be thrown. That's what you would really do if you were creating an application. Now, you're most welcome to create a catch block for everything. You can create a catch block for IO exception, for directory not found, for whatever you like. There's no end to it, right? But of course, we have to have an end. Okay, so let me complete this now. So you had to give the name of the file, then in which mode do you want to open it? So remember there was a file mode, and these are constants. So you don't have to memorize them. There they are: append, create, create new, open, open, or create in the open mode. There were two more parameters which were optional, but I'm going to, you don't have to write them because it was the default also. Then there was the file access. In which mode do you want to open it? And there was a fourth one also, sharing. Remember that file sharing? There it is. So I've written it in its eternity, the whole thing, but you don't have to because, so you could say none. And this file is not shared. So what have I done? I have created a stream object, just a file stream object. That's all I've created. So I've created a file whose name is file name. And what is this file name? It is in that property. It changes. If you choose another file, if you choose anju.txt, it will be anju.txt. If you choose input.dat, it will be input. Whatever you choose, that file name you're opening it here. In which mode are you opening it? In the open mode. If you bring your mouse, it will tell you. Specifies that the operating system should open existing file. The ability to open the file is dependent on the value specified by this, and so on. It is opened in the read mode. And I think read is also It's default. I may not have used it. And then I don't want to share this file. While this application is running, no other file, no other application can run it. Yes, go ahead. We are just trying to open the file to read from it and populate our combo box. No, yeah, but all you're saying is, no, it's already created. You already have those flavors. You're reading from that file. Okay. When you save it, the user can change the name. Even here, he or she can change the name. That's okay. Whatever you change will go into file name, and that's the file that gets opened here. You can choose any file. Why did I start with this one? To make it a little easy. Yeah. That's all. But this is opening a file. So I created a file stream object. We'll come to the catch in a minute. Now, and then you take your coffee stream reader, the one that you just created, this one, and you go new, and it was a stream reader object. And in there you can say FS. So this is a two-way, or you could have taken the whole new thing from here and put it right here. I just did it in 2 steps because I will be commenting it out. That's why. But you could just take this new from here. You needn't even create that FS at all. You can create the new from here and just put it right here inside it. Absolutely right. This is one way of now opening a file called whatever you choose in the open mode for read. This is one way of doing it, right? There were 15 overloaded methods. So there is definitely another way. That another way is this. You could take your coffee stream reader object and just go new. I don't know which one you would like, but my aim is to show you both. The first one is more stepwise, which is perfectly fine. And it does allow you a few more flexibilities in the sense that you can open it in different modes or whatever. But if I use this one, where all I'm saying is I'm using a string object. I can also open it like this. So either these two together or this line. So what have I used here? I've used the stream reader object directly and I've opened it in a string. So this is another way of doing it. It also has 10 overloads. So either the first two or this one, because I can do it this way. Therefore, here I had said, let's check this one. If you were doing it the second way, then I would use this if statement. So whatever you like, you know what I'll do? I'll do it both ways. In this one, I'll go this way, and in my writer, I'll go the other way. Then you have seen both. Okay, so let's do it this way. The advantage of creating a file stream first and then encapsulating it inside a stream reader object, you have all these options. You can open it in different modes. You can read it for read, write, or write. You can share it or not share it. You have more flexibility. When you do it like this simply opens the file in the read mode. That's it. There is nothing else. You know what I mean? It's just you're giving the name of a file and that's it. There is no flexibility with it. So users choose, programmers choose to do it this way. They have more flexibility. They can decide the file mode. They can decide the file access. They can decide the file share themselves. I'll show you both. They both work, but the first one is more flexible. So if I'm using this, I've commented out this one for closing. Okay, so I've opened the file. Now it may happen that I couldn't open it. Something went wrong. God knows what went wrong, but something went wrong. So now some lazy programmers, there are a few in the class, they will just put a big exception here and say every kind of exception is caught here. I don't care. But a right way would be to catch each exception, give a proper message so that the user knows what has happened and go that route. And you will say, how do I know it? Bring your mouse over it. See, bring your mouse here. It will tell you all the exceptions that need to be handled. Bring your mouse here. It will tell you all the exceptions that need to be handled. Then you combine everything and you should write catch as many times. And at the end, put an IO exception catch and then put a generic exception catch. Right? If you use this one, again, you don't have to memorize anything. You can bring your mouse here and these are the exceptions that are thrown. File not found, directory not found, IO exception, argument exception, and argument none. So if I start writing a catch for each one of them, I'll have at least 20 catches here. So I'm going to be lazy again, like some of you, and I'm just going to put a generic catch here, or at least if nothing else, I'll put an IO exception. Right? And I'll also put a generic one. So I'm just trying to show you that you should be doing it. Don't forget that good habits you should always keep. And in files usually, or with any time you use any resources, you will always have a finally block. Why? Because I've said always close your files, always close your resources. So in my finally block, I'll always have something like this. If, again, close it. Fs is not equal to null, close it. Oops, wrong place. And when you close a file stream object, the file itself is automatically closed, okay? You don't have to write the stream reader. So I'm going to do this. Always in my finally, I will close my files. And if I was doing the other one, if I was using the other option, I would have written if coffee stream reader is not equal to null, close it. So it's always before closing, check it exists. So you cannot open a file that is already open. You cannot close a file stream object that is not open. So you always check if it is not equal to null, I'm going to close it. So again, because I'm using the FS in this code, I'm going to put this statement. And it will automatically also close the stream reader. You don't have to write both of them. When you're working with FS, when you close FS, FS closes and stream reader also closes. If you're not using FS at all, you're only working with that string file name, then of course you have to write this statement. Okay. So again, I'm commenting out what I'll not need. And a generic exception is always a good thing. So I have only written 2, but that's not it, right? There are many more. And it depends what you're using. So this one is throwing different exceptions. This one is throwing different exceptions. If you decide to use this one, this is throwing a different set of exceptions. So depending upon what you are using, please see that you have the right catches, right? And you don't have to memorize it. Bring your mouse over it and it will say. So definitely I saw file IO. There it is, IO exception. And this exception is just a generic one. Like I'm just doing an exception. So I've just kind of put it. I've put 2. You could put whatever. What will you do in these exceptions? As you've been doing, you'll write your message box.show. Now I don't know what exception occurred. So I'll kind of like, if it was file not found, I could have said file does not exist. If it was directed not exist, I would have said directed. I would have written my own message. But since I am not sure what the message will be, IO exception is just generic, right? So I'll just say, show me the message. And all I can say is error in my title. See how generic it becomes. It doesn't tell a lot to the user at all. Use your message box dot buttons, okay. And then use your message box icons dot error. Oops. There. And I'll have to do the same kind of stuff here too, because I have no clue. That's what happens when you're lazy. You have no clue, so you just kind of write generic message boxes. And again, I'm not saying, please make a note for yourself. Catch all possible exceptions that are thrown from the above try. So all you have to do is bring your mouse here, write a catch for each one of these exceptions, bring your mouse here, add these 2 to your list. That's how you know what exceptions need to be caught. So I've just done it. So here there won't be any IOEX. It will be just called EX. So I've written the 2 generic ones. IO exceptions, I don't know what input output exception will occur, and the exception which, again, I just said any exception can occur. Let's see if it works, okay? The open file. And one more thing. Double click on your form so that this load comes up. And I'm going to, as soon as the application starts, the first thing that will come up, you don't have to do it, but the first thing that will come up is the file open dialog box. By default, because that's what you want to do before you begin, right? Okay. Just to show you what's happening, okay? Now, open your Solution Explorer, go to your debug folder, do a right click and say, there is no add here. So I just opened that folder, the bin debug folder, and you can just open it from here. You don't have to go it. And how do you show this? Say show all files. There is a show all files here. Show it here, show all files. This bin debug will come, do a right click on it and I said open folder in File Explorer. That's what I did. And here I'm going to create a new file, text file. What do we want to call it? Coffees. You can call it, doesn't matter. I mean, I'll show you, it doesn't matter. And what do you want to put in it? We want to put all those coffee flavors from here. So open that up, go to its collection, copy it from here, remove it from here, all your flavors. Keep it an empty combo box because this will be populated now. Okay. We'll do an OK. So this is empty now. Okay. And I'll put it in this file that you've just created. So just create a file with all these flavors. That's all I've done. I've created a text file with all the flavors that were in your combo box. I've called it coffees.txt just because that's the default I'm taking. And I've saved it in the bin debug folder of my project. And how to get there? All you do is you show all files from here from your Solution Explorer. And then you go to this debug, do a right click. I was hoping that I could create a file right here, but I don't find anywhere. So I just said open folder in File Explorer and saved it. So now this is empty. There is nothing here. Okay. But let's see if the file dialog box is working. Then we'll take a break and then go forward. Okay. So as I said, as soon as the form loads, that's taking a while. Shouldn't take that long, but it is. See, here is your file dialog box that you created. Notice a few things. Notice the name of the file, coffees.txt, because I said file name was coffees.txt, but that doesn't mean that you can't select anything else from here. If you click on something else, that will become the file. Or if you say something like AA, which I'll do for you and try to open it, it will say file does not exist. Make sense? Right? So that's the checking. It is checking it for you. If you select it, so that's why I selected it. Look at my filter. So the only files that are appearing are whatever.txt and star.star, anything before, anything after, right? So this is what I said. This is my title that I gave. And this is my default directory, initial directory. So I've set the properties of my file. If I say open now, this file gets opened. You will say, but how do I know? We'll have to do a little more about it. But if I do cancel, nothing happens. And my program starts normal, abnormally or normally, whatever you would like to call it. So that's the open file dialog. Plus, you can also open a file. You change your mind. Before you were reading from another file, now you want to open from another, read the flavors from another. The same thing comes again. So why did I make it open when the application started? Because that's your step one. You want to populate your combo box. So why should user come and choose open file? I said just open it when the application started. User does a cancel, changes his or her mind, can open it from here also. Therefore, I close it before I open. So closing and opening of files, you'll have to take care. Open them, but always remember to close them in finally. And why in finally? Irrespective of whether you came to finally from try or catch, they've always to be closed. I hope you know the finally block. Finally block is always executed, irrespective of whether an exception occurred or it did not occur. It is always done. Therefore, I close my files in finally. But before I close it, I always check it. Are you open? Only then can I close it. Before I open it, I always check. I hope you're not open. If you're open, close yourself. Then I'll open you. So all those things, right? We'll take a break. Please bear with me. We'll do a 15-minute break today instead of 20. And then I'll come and show you how to take the contents of this file and put it in your combo box. Okay? That will be your next step.
Is it going to be in-class assignments from now to the end of
The quizzes that you're doing are in class assignments.
Okay, and then this can be done till the end of the...
Yes, so next week again, but this time I've allowed you, but it starts at 2 and it finishes at 2.
Okay.
There are no...
Yeah. So I had to wait for my brother to come home to take care of my brother. And then...
The weather, yeah. So today, because of the weather, I gave a 15-minute. Yeah. And therefore I gave a 15-minute extension. But you were all later than that. But that's okay. If there is something like this, or you're sick and you have a doctor's note, then we'll have to compensate for it. Okay. But yes, these are your in-class assignments.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, in the load, double click on the, you have that load, call the OpenStreet menu item from there. Now when it opens up, it will do it. Come again?
Does our school give the college give access to the plural site, the online learning tool?
Which site? Which one?
The plural site.
I don't know. I have no idea. What site is that?
It is online learning.
And you're getting that it is blocked?
No, no, no. It is not like. I was just wondering, like, if our college gives access to
Free access, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, because it's paid?
Yeah.
Ross would know that. Is it only related to computers or is it a
It
generic?
is just like online learning.
Ask Ross. Anytime you have things like this, ask him, and then you can always put in a request, and then if we can do it for everybody, then we'll do it. Okay?
Thanks.
Vinayak, in arrays sequence, numbering starts from 0. So and sorting will put it at a different position. So if there are 6 elements in an array, it's from 0 to 5. Can't be a 6, right? You were saying 6 is missing. Okay. Okay.
So our next thing is do yeah.
I don't like to read. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, guys, thanks for accommodating. It's just that because of the quiz and so on, we lose half hour. Okay, so let's do this. So the file, so I've shown you how the open file dialog box is appearing. And if you cancel, nothing happens. And if you open, if the file doesn't exist, it will say that it doesn't exist. Okay, so all that is okay, doing okay. Everything is working fine. Now the main thing, how do I populate my data? So there's data in the file. I've already created the file. There are names of flavors. I want to take those flavor names and put it in my combo blocks. Okay, so that means I have to now read from the file. So let's read the contents of the file. So in the try block, you open the file, and again, depending upon which one you choose, you can choose either of them. You could put the whole new inside here too, which is just another way of doing anything in object-oriented programming. Now read the contents of the file. Now, the most important thing to do before you read the content of the file is you should know what it contains, right? Now, if you remember, and if you don't, I'll go here and show it to you. In my file, it's a file. All it has is each flavor is occurring on one line. So if I do a read line, I haven't put them on the same line. If I had, I would have to use a different method to read. I have to find out how and have to split it if it was separated by commas or blanks or something. Like, this is the easiest way. So what do? I put one flavor per line. But there are options. You could do it in one line. You could put 3 flavors in a line, but you have to know what are the contents because that's how you read it. So for me, it's just text data. I don't have to parse anything or change it. If they were marks of my students, I would read one at a time, parse it into integer or decimal, whatever it is. And if I was calculating the average, add them together and find the average. So this is the contents of my file. So I know it's a text file, has one string per line. Okay, so let's go back. So now how do I read? Now there are a few ways you can read. Of course, I'll use a method. I'm going to say while my coffee stream reader, yep, there you are, coffee stream reader. While this files, there is more to peek inside it. So peek is a method. Peek is a method. If you bring your mouse over it, it will tell you. Peek is a method, returns the next available character, but does not consume it. So it just returns it, but does not consume it, means does not move forward kind of. So you're saying while there is more, it's only seeing is there more. Peeking is peek. So it looks at it and it says, yes, there is more. And it is one character at a time. So if there is a character, it says, yes, there is. So if it is not equal to -1 means there is something in my file. Okay. So one character at a time is all it does. It just peeks one at a time. You'll say, oh, can I use some other method? Then you'll have to just see. But this is the one that I know of. So oh, it kind of, because I already have that one. So again, how will you know what methods are available? You kind of start this way. You can bring your mouse one at a time to see what it is. You can read, you can do a read and so on. But I mean, you'll have to know what it is, right? So because I know of peek, I used it. There is a read and so on, but that's the next step that I'll have to do. First, I'll have to say, do you have something? So I use the peek method. And how do you check if the file has something? You say is not equal to -1. Right? That's what it says. So read the contents of the file, and then you're basically checking, is there data in the file? So that's what you're checking, is there data in the file? So while the peek method is not equal to -1 means there is something in the file. Excuse me. Okay. So that's how you, and peeking is just peeking, like English word peek. You're just looking. You haven't read it. It's not reading. It's just peeking. Now to read it, I'm going to read, I know it's a string, right? So I'm going to take the coffee name from my stream reader object, however you've created it, doesn't matter whether with the first two FS and whatever or the other way, doesn't matter. But now this is whenever you have to use the file name, you will use the coffee stream reader. That's your stream reader. And dot read line. So there is a read. Notice how it says reads the next character. I don't want to read it character by character. Let's go down. It says reads a specified maximum number of characters from the current asynchronously. Synchronous is when you do two things together. Asynchronously means separate. I could use this, but I don't know how many characters. All my coffee names are of different size. Sometimes I want to read 20 characters, sometimes 5, sometimes 18. So I don't want to even use this one. You read block asynchronous, and so on. I know read line is the easiest, as the name suggests. Read one line at a time, right? So I read it. So peek just checks, read line reads. They are two different things, okay? So peek just checks and read line reads. Read it. And now whatever you've read, take your coffee combo box. It was called CV or something. Take your coffee combo box and add it to it. There. Oh. So for students who've just come back in the try block, all I'm doing is now I'm reading the contents of my file. So the peek method allows you to just peek, check. Is there a character? If there is a character, I'm reading line at a time. And I know that I have to read one line at a time. So you have to exactly know the contents of your file, the format of your file. If it was a number, then you would have to maybe, you would have to convert it into a parse it and convert it into a, when it's giving me an error, I know I've missed something. You have to add it to the items collection. Right? Now your combo box gets populated. So the contents of the file are read one line at a time. Before you read, you check. If you forget to do this, what do you think will happen? You will have a file end of file exception, which you can always catch. See, it is throwing an IO exception and an out of memory exception. So you can always put this in a try catch if you don't want to use a while. Using a while is just more, I don't know. We just think, why should we do it even if it doesn't exist? You can always bring your mouse here. It is throwing an IO exception. So logically, it is throwing an IO exception. I already have it, so I'm okay to use. So every time you use a method, bring your mouse over it and see, does it throw an exception? If it throws an exception, please ensure it is in a try catch block. And it's there. See if this one is throwing an exception. This one is okay. Read line, sorry. Yes, out of memory. So all I had to do was, if I was doing it actually, I would have added another catch here, out of memory exception. Right? Now let's look at this add method. Does it throw an exception? Yes, argument null exception. Add an argument null exception, catch.
So if you didn't have that while there, then you thought you
then in some exception it would have caught it.
would it work?
Yeah, it will work. Do you want to try? I will. Yep. So if I remove this and if I try to read beyond the end of the file, let's see what happens. It is going to throw an exception. So I've removed the while for a minute. Okay. Okay. So let's try.
Without the while, you will read only the first one. Because you don't have a loop.
So I don't have, I don't need these two brackets also. But I mean, okay. I thought then I have to uncomment them there.
But I mean,
Yeah,
you got only the first line of the file.
exactly. You will only, oh yes. Yeah, logically. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You'll only get the first record, nothing else. How silly. Yep. Unless there was some other loop. Yeah, so you know what I can do just to kind of, let's double check. Because I don't know, I'm sure it will throw an exception. So let's say while true, that's an infinite loop, right? So when I finish, then it should throw an exception that what are you trying to read? So let's try that. I'm sure it will work. It will throw some, of course I haven't caught it, so it will throw a runtime exception, but let's see what it does. Okay, so I'm going to, it has to, like otherwise it's useless, right? Okay, so let's take that file, open it, and something happened somewhere, but God knows where, but I have an error. So I don't know what it is, but that doesn't seem to be, no, this is not that error then. Nope, there's something else. Where is it coming from? Oh, so on this one, this is the one that is coming. Yeah, so it will, something will happen, like it won't go on forever. But definitely instead of using this, I would definitely use which one? This one, because I know that that's the right way of doing it. But But if you make mistakes, some exception will be thrown, and mine was being thrown. And that message was a very, like a message that I couldn't figure out, but it was coming from either this or this, who knows which one, which catch, but it was being caught. If you don't have any try catches, then the program will stop and give me some exception, but I don't know what. Okay, now let's try. So this should happen. What should happen? If you choose a file, which I'm going to choose, if you don't, then this combo box is empty. Nothing got populated, right? You say, oh, sorry, I forgot. Okay, so let's open it from here then. Choose the file. Now what will happen? See, here it is. It's populated. So now my contents are coming from my file. I don't have anything in my combo box. So what happens? Look at what has happened. I open a file. The file was opened. I read from the file till the end of the file. Where is that loop? This is the loop of reading till the end of the file. And then I add it to my items. There it is. Read one line at a time and add it to my items. So your coffee flavors get populated. So now it is so easy. So if the manager says, oh, we've added a new flavor for December, all you have to do is add new flavors in that coffees.txt, and for December, the new flavors will be added. When you're done, just remove them. And then in January, you're back to your original file. Right? So now you don't have to bother about these things. The data is persistent, permanent. Okay, so that's open file dialog. It's working. Doesn't matter whether it was when I load it, I open it or whatever, it's working perfectly fine. Right? Now let's do the other one, the save. Now the save. What is save? What has save to do? Think about it logically. What has save to do? Save has to take the contents of the coffees, all the coffees, and then put it where? Put it back into the file. If and only if something was changed. If and only if something was changed. If nothing was changed, then save is kind of, it's not useless. It just won't do anything. So now let's write the save. Okay, same kind of, I'll do the same kind of concept. I'll ask the user and so on. Do you want to save or whatever? So I'm going to take a dialog result. You have to learn where to declare variables, guys. You're still kind of, not all of you, a few of you are still struggling. Local me is only to be used inside method. And you put those variables at the module level if they are required in more than one methods, at least here. But if it was a class, anything that belongs to the class, instance variables. Think it that way and you will not go wrong. Okay, so what am I saying? If something has changed, and this is the easiest way, if is dirty. So that means something did change. If nothing, then we'll put a message box saying, oh, nothing changed. There was nothing to save. You can do it. It's always a good idea to tell the user, oh, nothing has changed, so nothing went. I'm not doing anything. So what will we do in the else? We'll just put a message box, our favorite, and then say there are no changes to coffee flavors. To the coffee list, you can say. So nothing will be saved. So nothing will be saved. Right? And then again, we always take care that we have a proper title. In the title, every word is capitalized. It's called the capitalize notation. And then the OK button, and those are not necessary, but if you need to have an icon, then I need to have buttons. It's kind of, if you need to show an icon, then you need to have a button. OK would be the button, and then message box icon. So if you don't bother about icons, you're OK with. This is just an information one. So you let the user know that there is nothing to save. Always. It's always, you have to always remember to make it user friendly. Now, if is dirty. So you want to save. Now you have a few options again. You will not even ask the user in which file you want to save. You will just save it into a file. You can do that. You can create a file variable. You can just put it in a file. You don't even ask which file do you want to save to. That's perfectly fine. There is nothing wrong in it. You create a file object and you just in a directory and you save that. But again, it's always a good idea to ask the user, because operating system doesn't save anywhere. It asks you where to save it. So we'll do the same thing. Okay. So I'm going to show the save. So I'm going to now save it. Save means I'm going to do writing. Writing means I'll be saving it in a file. Here I'll use the normal coffee stream writer. So I'll use the other option here, okay? So I've already shown you the two, but in this one, I'll just kind of go with one. So again, before you open it to save, please ensure it is closed. And we'll have a finally, but we haven't written it right. Okay, so always ensure this. So I'm using the stream writer with that string one in this one. I've already shown you the FS in the other one. It's not very big deal, but still, why not? Just show you both so that if you are asked, you know. So set the properties of your save file dialog box, like you did for your other one. Oops. So you can, same thing. It's called save file dialog box now, okay? What is the difference? One has the open and the cancel button. The save file dialog box has the save and the cancel buttons. Okay, that's the difference. So you won't use the open one here. It doesn't have the save button. You will use save here. So you have to know which dialog box to use. Okay, so let's set its initial, there it is, initial directory, like we did before. Again, if you want to choose your own, sure. If you want to use the default, then the directory class, you can get the get current directory and your job is done. So by default, that directory will open. And that's what its use is. By default, a directory opens up. If you don't use it, whatever is the default for Visual Studio, that will open up. I haven't checked what it is. We can always check. If you don't set it, what opens up, we'll double check. Okay, now in that one, again, file name if you like. You don't have to, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to, I don't know, maybe the same file just for the heck of it, because why will you create a new file? So I'll go coffees dot, and I'll show you something else. You can also do this because you would ask, I don't know from where the question came. So you can set your own extension also if you want. So if all files have to have extension text, you can write it this way. So instead of one line, which was much easier, you can also go this way. File name there and extension separately. Just showing you because it was asked. The title box, the title, of course. Oh, I think it was called title. Oh, there it is, title. And then, I don't know, something makes sense, save file. Right? What else can I set? Oh, the filter. So again, it's up to you what you want to set. You know what? Just because it's a little time consuming, I'll take my filter from here. Again, none of this is necessary, but what is it doing? It's making it so much neater and nice. And that doesn't mean that you can't set more properties. You can set whatever properties you like. And we can try this. I'll just remove this and see what happens in save. What is the initial default directory? I don't know. I've never kind of paid attention to it. I've always put it where I want to put it. So I don't know in which default directory is it open by default. Show it to the user. Same show dialog. Notice there is no show at all here. You have to respond to it, which is logical. If your response is not equal to cancel, that means you're okay to save, and let's save it. Right? Now, definitely, if you're canceling, then you are saying, I don't want to do anything. But if you're not canceling, you want to open the file. I do know that I will need a try catch. And finally also, actually. So I'll kind of leave the catches because I don't know what catches will I need. I mean, it's kind of, without saying it goes that you will have some exceptions being thrown when you work with the file. So if the user says, yeah, I want to open a file, I've already put it in a file mode, so I'll just so that you can see, just because it is a little different. I'm going to put it here and then I'm going to comment it out, okay? I want to show you another, I won't use it. just because I've used it in the other one. I'm going to show you a different access here. File mode, is it? Yeah. See here, I won't say open. I'll say I'll either create or I'll say create new. Or is there a, yep, that's the two options for writing. See? So depends in which mode do you want to open. If I want to save a file, I will open it in the create or new mode. The difference between the two. Create says the file can exist. If it exists, I will overwrite it. Create or new says the file must not exist at all. I'll create a new one. So if a file exists, it will just erase it and then rewrite it. Otherwise it will create a new one. Okay, both are allowed in create. So if you bring your mouse over it, it will tell you. It will say specifies that the operating system should create a new file. If the file already exists, it will be overwritten. And now go to create new. See what does create new say? It says specifies that the operating system should create a new file. This requires this permission. If it already exists, an IO exception is thrown. That's the difference. So create new means the file should not exist. And create means if it exists, I will overwrite it. Okay, that's the difference. So depends. And in which mode do you want to open it? So in that mode in which the access is this write access. Right, so these things will change. If you're opening a file for reading, you will open it in the open mode and you will read from it. If you are creating a file, if you're going to write to a file, you will open it in the create mode and you will do a write on it. Okay? And I didn't do the sharing. So this is just here for your information, but I'll just kind of use the simple one, not simple one, just a different one. So if this was it, I would have said, and I could have used this FS here, like I did in the previous one. Just for this one, I'll use the easy one or a different one. Okay, and if you want to use this one, all you do is take the file name. It requires a string object. This is a string one. So I've used this one in the reading. I'm using this one in the writing, just for the heck, just not for the heck of it, but just to be different. Here, notice. Now when I do this, notice how many exceptions are thrown. Unauthorized, argument null, directory not found, path too long, IO exception. Again, what will be your job? To catch all these exceptions. Right? I'll again be a little cheeky here and I'll just catch the IO exception. Or you can even say exception and you don't have to do anything at all. Because I'm sure that it is a child of it. I'm not very, I know more of Java's exception than I know these exceptions. Just because we use that more. This is only a course and those are 3 courses, so you do more of it. And here, always remember to close your file. So if your stream writer, if your coffee stream writer is not equal to null, that means it is open, please remember to close it. Finally, you will always have to close them. Even though you know I have closed it or whatever, like this silly thing here that I close it even if it's open, but I don't know, just to be on the safe side. Okay, it's just a practice. It's just a very good practice. Okay, so if you try to open it, and again, which exceptions to catch? Look at here. So I'm only writing one. You will create catch blocks for all exceptions being thrown. This is for your information. I'm just putting it on you. You have to do it. Okay. Okay, now what? So the file is open. If everything is open, everything works well, I do the try. So always keep in mind that it's not only validation, and after validation, you're writing your calculations after the catch. The whole purpose is lost. You write your code inside the try. You're saying try to do this. If it all goes well, do it. If something goes wrong, it will go to the catch. So calculations are done here, right inside the try, not outside the try. Okay, now what? What do I want to do? I want to pick up one flavor at a time from my combo box and write it to the file. That's all I have to do. So I'll use a for each loop to pick up one at a time. So take for each, pick up one string at a time from your, what was it called? Coffee combo box, CBO something. There it is. From the coffee combo box. You can use the small or the capital, doesn't matter, both work in C#. One is a structure and one is a class. Here. So pick up one at a time from your coffee combo box. So what will you say? You will say copy coffee flavors from the list to the file. Right? So for each is picking up one at a time. You could have used a for loop. Nothing stopped you. It is just more work using a for loop. Okay, now we have to write to the file. So take your coffee stream writer object and use a write line, write asynchronous, write line asynchronous. The one that will work for us, because we're not even talking synchronous and asynchronous, is this. And put it in your file. There it is. Job done. Yes.
Will it automatically go to line?
One at a time. From my combo box, write line puts it one per line. Therefore, I did a read line because it will be saved in lines and read as line. And don't forget, since you've saved everything, changes have been saved. So what must you do? You must take your is dirty variable and set it back to false. My job is done. Otherwise, if you don't set it to false, it will just keep saving every time. So once it gets saved, just save it. There it is. So save should now save. Now, if the user forgets to save, now remember I said the user can do anything. So what I'll do is I'll ensure that when he closes the form or does an exit, it saves again. Just double checks again. Ask the user, do you want to save or not, right? So this is saving. But before I kind of show you that it works, what I'm going to do is, we had the exit already, right? What did we do in exit? We said application.exit. So what I'm going to do is, okay, I'm going to write the form closing event for my form. Remember, we've done this before also because the user can close from here also. So click on your form, open your properties, go to your events, and in front of form closing. So come with me, right? Do what I'm doing. I'm going to now ensure that when the form is closed, irrespective of with the cross or with the exit button, I double check that if there is something to save, I'll ask the user or I'll let the user know there is something to save. If he wants to save it, I'll say, good, it's up to you. If not, that's up to you again, right? But I'll kind of ask. Okay, so here, double click in front of it. What happens? A form closing stub gets created for you. So go to the form, go to the events, in front of the form closing event, double click. And here I'm going to do all my bookkeeping operations. I'll close all files. I'll double check if something has to be saved and so on. Okay, so these are called bookkeeping operations for your information. Okay, so remember to close both here, depending upon what we did. We used FS for the reader. So depending on what we have used, okay, I'm doing that. I'm going to say fs.close because I've used, for reading, I use the FS. For writing, I've used the stream writer. Keep in mind this automatically closes, just so that you know why she's not closing the stream reader. Therefore, I don't close it separately. And in this one, I'm going to use the coffee stream writer because that's what I've used. I haven't used FS here. Keep in mind, of course, I couldn't have called it FS. I can't have two FSs. One had to be FS1 then. Because I didn't reuse it, therefore. Or if you want, we can declare two. So that you don't get confused. Let's do that just in case. Because if you start uncommenting, then it will create problems. This one I'm going to call FS1. Okay, and FS1, though I'm not even using it, but still. And I'm going to create another FS1 at the head. Because if you start check or trying it, then they should exist. So I've used FS for the first reading and FS1 for the second, just to keep them separate. Okay, now where was I? Okay, there it was. Right, so I have used fs not equal to null, close it. And for the stream writer, since I have commented out the fs1, I have kind of used this one. Okay, now just to be sure, let's ask the user, do you want to save? So I'm going to check. So maybe the user forgot. Okay, so I'm going to check if is dirty. I'm going to ask the user, do you want to save? So I'm going to take that dialog result. You can say confirm here or whatever you want. And I'm going to show him the message box or her the message box. And tell the user that changes were made. Coffee flavors were added or deleted, whatever. So coffee flavors list updated. Save the changes. So this is just a good idea. You don't have to do it, but it's a good idea because the user is closing the form without realizing it. And so we are just kind of double checking that, do you want to save changes? Let's give it a title. Let's give a button. Of course, in this, we can't only work with yes. We'll have to say yes, no, or yes, no, cancel. Yes, no is good enough. And then in this one, we will use a question mark. And if you want to make one of the buttons as default, you can make your yes button or no button, whichever you want as the default. So I'm writing the form closing event to be sure that when the user exits the application, files are closed. If anything needs to be saved, it is asked from the user, and then I close my form. And application, for your information, when I do an application.exit, the exit method also calls the form closing method. Form closing will always happen. When you use the cross, this event will be, what do you say? Event is thrown. No, it's not called thrown. What do you use with events? I forget. Anyways, it's not forget. It's just not coming. The right word is not coming, right? So this event will be thrown when you use the cross, or this event is also triggered when you use the exit button. So the files will be closed. If there is anything to be saved, it will be asked from you. But of course, if you say yes, or if the user says yes, then only will it be saved. You can't force the user to. So you're not saving on your own. You're just confirming from the user. If you wanted to, you could always do it. So I'm going to call that save coffee flavors tool strip menu item. Click. There it is. I won't repeat code. Guys, never repeat code. It's not about copying and pasting. It's about just not doing the right thing. I don't want to copy all the code from the save, click, and write it here. Like in your midterms, validate your data if you are going to create buttons, which some of you didn't create combo box, but if you're going to create buttons, you don't have to validate in every button. Write a validate method and call it from all your buttons. That's the right way of doing it. You don't copy code everywhere. It's just not the right thing to do. Okay, so if the user says, yes, I want to save it, it will be saved. Otherwise, it will be ignored, which is okay. Right? Now let's test if everything is working. So this is a very good approach in which, irrespective of whether you use the exit button or the cross, all files will be closed. All open files will be closed. All open. I just don't say fs close. I just check. You'll say, why? How does it matter? Otherwise, it will throw a null pointer exception. How are you closing a file that is not even open? The object doesn't exist. How are you closing it? You know what I mean? Therefore, I check. Are you not equal to null? Then you close it. Okay, now let's see if things go right. They should, but who knows, right? We never know when we are writing code. Okay, so I read from this file and my combo box gets populated. Good enough. Let's add and let's delete the chocolate almond flavor. Let's remove it. All this is working from whatever outside, right? Let's add a new flavor. Okay, I don't know whether we had this list sorted or not, but we'll double check whether they're sorted. Okay, I've done my job. Now I can exit without saving. I'm just saying, oh, let's exit. But as soon as I do exist, it will call the form closing and it's saying coffee flavors list updated, save changes. If you say no, Nothing gets changed. So now if I run it again, my file has not changed. If my file has not changed, of course my coffee list has not changed. I chose not to save it, so nothing got saved. Now let's try again. Let's take this. Let's remove it from here. Let's save it ourselves. Now, this is what has your save dialog box. Save and cancel. That's your filter. That's the file name. Now, if you change the file name to whatever, you say AA and you try to save, it says, it will do it. You open it in the create mode. And it doesn't check if the file doesn't exist. Remember, I did a false in my properties. If you change it to true, it will say, oh, that file doesn't exist. I can't save it. So now it's saved in AA for your information, okay? So if you want to add a new flavor, let's add it. And then now when I kind of close, either way, I say yes, I'm going to save it in AA. Notice how I gave it a default extension, therefore it was saved as AA.text. That was its default. I'm saying save it there and save. Say, do you want to replace it? Yes. Okay. Now, the best way of seeing if things have happened, open your Solution Explorer, refresh it. Here, new got added, and the first one got deleted. It's persistent. Remember, I didn't do anything to my coffees.txt. I chose not to. So that remains what it was. So you can do this also. You can keep your flavors at one place, a file that you never touch, but every time you just create a second. So it's up to you what you want to do. Now I just said create if it exists. So now you'll say, but you did a create, you didn't do a create new. How come the new file is getting created? The new file is created because of this, because of the properties of this save file dialog box. And I'll show you the change. Go to your save file dialog, open its properties. Here it was saying if the file already exists, if it is false, I'll create a new one. Now, if you change it to true, see what will happen. So you have to manipulate all this. You have to understand what it does. The create will work this way. Okay, so let's try to, this is an open. Okay, let's create an open. Let's try to save now. Let me add a new flavor, NN. Now let me try to save. And let me try to create a new file, BB. I said don't, I made a change. Let's see what happens. I'm sure. Okay, so I'm doing something wrong for sure, or I haven't done it right. Okay, so what did I do? I said check if it doesn't exist. So there has to be a difference, and there's no difference. So what has happened? I'll have to double check now because I am not doing the right thing. I think I said check file exists and it didn't do it. BB was a new file and it didn't do it. Oh, because I have a create there. Oops. Okay, the create is in my in my code. Okay, we'll have to change that too. I'll have to do a create new, but create, it's acting like a create new. So either way, the save file dialog box is not doing anything for me at all. If I do it true, it's acting the same way. I do it false, it's acting the same way. So that's the problem there, not in my code. But save dialog box is not behaving as it should. Mine will behave as it should. If you change your, I can do it because it's commented. If I change it to create new here, it will behave differently. But why is this not behaving differently? True and false have no difference. Let's see the property. Checks that the specified file exists before returning from the dialog. Checks, yes, it checks. And false, it does not check. The behavior is absolutely the same, right? Oh, you think, but when you, maybe, you're right, maybe. Could be. But when you run an application, it automatically saves. And it's not behaving. Okay, so let's take it from coffee. Let's add a new flavor, new 2. Let's save it. Let's save it in a new file, CC. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'm something. Okay, so that's coming up. You can't save it because I changed it from. That's really strange because when you run an application, all changes are saved by default. I don't know.
They should be. So that's what I was expecting. It won't let me save in a new file. It won't. Because I changed it from true to the false to true. So check. So it says, this is what it is saying. It says, verify that the correct file name was given. It won't allow you to create a new file. It won't. So you can manipulate it from there, or if I had to manipulate it from coding, I would have in that FS1, I could, if I say create, it will just, if I use create, then it will behave differently from create new. If I make it create new, it will let me create a new file. It will let me create a new file. I can show it to you very quickly. I can uncomment it and show it to you. Many more things will need to change, but that's okay. Let's see. I mean, let's see if I can do it. No. So if I go to my code, so this is check file exists is true now. So true means it will check. It won't allow you to create a new file. But if I want to override it, I'll have to do this. I'll have to do this. I'll have to do this. So, and I'll have to change my create to create new. I'll have to do this. So you have to do a few things, right? So let me do it. And I mean, I'm hoping I'm doing the right thing. So you can manipulate it either way. You can use the design and do it. You can use your own code and do it. But the code is not making changes to the save file dialog box. It is opening the file in the different mode. Okay, so let's say save. Oh, no changes. Oh, didn't add it. Okay, add the coffee flavor. Now make the changes. So see, it told me you couldn't. So let's try to save in CC. No. So the design is overruling the code. Design is overruling the code. Which is strange. I thought it would be the other way around. It in create new. Oh, I know. This may also be causing a problem. Another thing to be always remembered, unless you close a file, the contents are never written to a file, but that will come afterwards. But you always close a file, and that's when the buffer area is copied into the output area, if any. But I'll try this afterwards. I'm just trying things, and I thought my code, if I open it and create new, I should be okay. But seems like I'm not okay. And I didn't try who will take precedence over what. So when you try new things for the first time, then you have to, of course, play with it. But it's not even allowing me to create a new file is the biggest. So my code is not taking over. Create new said if it exists, create a new one, right? It allowed me to create it. Control S. Anything else? No. Okay, let's start. Then I'll have to play with it a little because I'm just thinking logically, but maybe I'm not right. So if I want to create a new file and I'm saying create new. Oh, no. Sorry? Did I what? No. This is not printing. This is just saving it. Okay, so this is overruling it. I don't know. Okay, I'll have to double check now because my thinking was that the save file dialog box can be overruled with my own. But seems like this is taking precedence. It is checking that the file doesn't exist, even if I try to do a create new. It is strange, right? Just run it again. Okay. Just run it again. Okay. What are you trying to check? Let's see. Tell me. Okay. What do you have in your head? So this is the open file. So open should work fine, which is working, right? Then I add a new flavor. Then I add this flavor, and now I want to save it. When I try to save it, I want to save it in a new file. Okay. Now, if I say create new was the mode in which I opened it, it should allow me to do it. A new file should be allowed to be made. But this dialog box comes up because of the
of the save file dialogs property. So that's taking precedence. It does that, and then it won't even get to my statement. So it's not allowing me to create a new file. So I have to choose one of these. I have to choose one of these, and then I'll be okay. Oh, okay, yeah, it says I'm changing it. So if I close it now, coffee flavors list updated, save changes. I just said I want to change. Do you want to replace it? Yes. Okay, I've messed up something. No, I must have not done it. That's fine. But I have to now double check. I don't know about it now. I thought that if I do a create new, I should be okay. But seems like, okay, something is not working properly. Okay, I won't waste, it needs to be done. So I'll bring it back to where I was. Okay, so that at least I leave it in a state in which it was perfectly working. I leave it in a state where it was perfectly working. And I won't do it right now, because when you start doing things, you mess up all your code. And that's the use of versioning, that you keep putting it and then you can go back to the previous one, except that I'm not doing it. But at least this has given me, I have kind of written all my comments now, which I wasn't writing before. So something I have to think about, that which is taking precedence. Okay, whatever. So this one was working perfectly fine. But the precedence I have to double check.
Anytime you get stuck, you have to Google it. There is no other way, right? My logical thinking was saying something else and it is doing something else. So definitely I'm not thinking logically, or I'm just not approaching it correctly. So we'll open this file. This list gets sorted. Let's add a new flavor. Let's add this flavor. Let's save this file in the same coffees.txt. Save it. Do you want to replace it? Yes. And then just maybe close it. And then yes to all. It's saving outside. Try to run it again. The new should be in the list. I'm just double checking that things are doing what they were doing. There it is. Yeah. So this was the working version. I was trying to change that whatever options of true, false, and it wasn't working. So I'll leave it alone. Okay. Because as I said, this is not a time where I can, these are things that you have to kind of work with and see. So create new and create. I was thinking, oh, create new and create now. Okay. Oh yeah, it was working before also. Yeah. So no, I was trying to do something with the save thing, which is not working, which is okay. It just has to be worked out, nothing else. No big deal. So the thinking of create and create new is something that I have to, therefore you see it's working now because it's been commented out. So whatever was in comments before is still working properly. At that I have to think of the other thing. So for now, what we've inferred is, and I'll have to double check, but of course, if it is working, that's what it is. But I'll have to double check that the save file dialog box properties are kind of superseding anything that is in the code, which doesn't make sense, but I don't know. To me, if I write something in code, it should supersede anything else. But somehow it's not working, maybe with files, I don't know. I'll have to play around with it. But this version definitely is working. So with what I have, it's working. The combination that I was thinking is not. Okay, so that's about an easy example of it. Though we did file opening and closing and reading from a file, but that's easy. Read lines, write lines, speak from it. How to open a file, use a file stream, or you can give a file name directly in the argument and so on and so on. But what I haven't done, which I should have done, but I haven't done, is I should have written the catch for every exception that gets thrown by any kind of statement. So keep that in mind. You don't write if text box is empty in a try. You're checking whether a text, like whether some input is empty. You don't need it to be in a try. Why? Because it's not going to throw an exception. You put that code in try catch, which is expected to throw exception, like the parse method throws an exception. So you put it in a try catch. But some of you are thinking that everything has to go in try catch and it would be magic. It's not magic. Try catch blocks are simply written so that methods that throw exceptions are caught by the programmer and a better message is given to the user. But if all you have to test it, if the input is blank, you don't have to put it in a try catch, because all you are saying is if it is not equal to string.empty. Are you using any method? No. So using of try catch is not, oh, it will do everything. You have to think about it. So how do I know what I have to do? I'll bring my mouse over the methods I'm using and I'll see, is there something that is throwing an exception? Is this method throwing exceptions? Yes. So I'll put it in a try catch. I'll see all the methods and all constructors that I'm using. Remember, constructor is also a special kind of method. I'll go through everything that I'm using here to see what exceptions are thrown and then put it in a try catch. If these statements are not even, does the for each throw an exception? No. So if this was the only thing I was doing something with the for each, I won't put it in a try catch because there's nothing to catch. So the use of try catch, you're getting there, you will, but you're doing it in Java also. So the knack is, and again, the knack is not just writing a catch and it's a generic expression which says something is wrong. What is wrong is the big question. You're telling the user something is wrong. But does that work? No. Think of it. You take your car to a mechanic, the mechanic says something is wrong. But unless you know what is wrong, how will you get it fixed? Right? So that's the same analogy that you must think. I have to catch every exception so that I can tell the user the input must be a number. The input is missing. Or you cannot divide by 0. Messages like this so that the user knows what is happening. That's why we write independent catches. But hopefully you will get there. Right? So all this is on GitHub now. So now again, the same criteria. I'm hoping I can make something. I'm going to make a multiple choice quiz again on files. Next week when you come to class, you will have that quiz in the first half hour. And then we will do databases. You're left with databases. Okay? And then I have no clue of what to do with databases. Like multiple choice. Will be off bit time, but I think I'll think about it when the time comes. By that time, I have taken a vote from your section. 15 students out of 26 said that they want to go multiple choice. I'll take it from the other section and I'll let you know what happens for the final exam. Okay, but you will just do these online quizzes, and just because online quizzes are not being done as well, because one, they are multiple choice, and two, you take them lightly. I'll give more marks to your coding because that's good. Okay, so you've already done 3 assignments. Right now they were standing at 15, 15, and 15. I was thinking I could have 3 quizzes, but maybe we'll have to increase those 3 if we can only have 2 quizzes. So those were important, and they were done before the strike. So I mean, there is nothing wrong in giving them more weightage. You know what I mean? You've done it, so there was no interruption at that point of time. So all your marks are up on Blackboard. Midterm, most probably by today or tomorrow, latest by Thursday, the marks will be up. I just have a couple remaining. Okay, I just have to do my quiz now first, because I've never made quizzes. So it's taking me time to make multiple choice quizzes, more time than it takes me to make coding questions. Right? So you have this. Please see that you put things that you need on the cheat sheet. Okay, so when you come and you need a cheat sheet, don't say, oh, you said nothing of memorizing will come. When I say nothing of memorizing, I'm not saying memorize 20 lines of code, but I can always ask in which mode can a file be opened, or which of this is not a valid file mode, right? So those things you have to be aware of, okay? Next week, first half hour, there will be a quiz on files. This chapter, what I've done today and what's on Blackboard, okay? Okay, 21. So I've added a new which says new slides added. Use that one. That's the one I've added, okay?